let's talk about idols. So this is a misunderstood topic because in the Bible times, idolatry was isolated in its examples to literally worshiping weird little statues and stuff, like made of wood or gold or whatever. But when you examine the scriptures further, it expands idolatry to basically anything that sets itself above the love of God. So literally, it's when we worship anything other than God. But what is worship? Is that singing slow songs of adoration? So Romans 12:1 says, I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is your true and proper worship. So that's worship. So worship is really about willful devotion. So when it's about something other than God, it's willful devotion about something other than God, right? So God does not tolerate idolatry of any kind. So he wants it all. So remember the first commandment, love the Lord your God with all of your heart, all of your soul, and all of your mind, and all your strength. All means he doesn't want to share. He doesn't want to share 10%. Like, he doesn't want you to just prioritize him and then you get to enjoy everything else and devote yourself to other things. He wants you to give him all of everything. And so when you do these other things, you love your family, or you work, your day job or whatever, you do those things out of love of him, not out of independence from him. It's not separate from your love of him. Everything comes out of the flow of loving him. Okay, so but all means when you love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, all means he doesn't want to share, right? So when it says with all of your mind, devotion can happen in the mind. Devotion can happen in your heart, in your soul. Devotion can happen in our physical actions. So idolatry means anything we are devoted to, we give devotion to, outside of our love of God. So let's break down this into some examples, right? Obviously, the literal idols, like in the Old Testament, like statues or art pieces that we worship. Some people actually do that. It's done in paganism. It's done in the Roman Catholic Church. Sorry, guys. It's done in Hinduism. You got to get rid of idolatry. Next is anything that involves an obvious, willful interactive sin. Like, this can be alcohol, cigarettes, narcotics, pornography. Are you struggling with pornography? And that's a very, very real form of idolatry. Even like masturbating. If you're devoting your body and your mind to something that goes against God's design and purpose, as in marriage, being one flesh with your wife, your spouse, that's idolatry. What about food? I've struggled with this one. Are you craving and consuming delicious food to the point of it not glorifying God who lives in your body with you? That's gluttony. That's a sin. Okay, that's idolatry. So now let's talk about things that maybe you didn't consider to be idols. Things that are designed to be for a good purpose, but you've lifted them up to a place of devotion before the Lord's, right? So like sleep. Are you sleeping in to the point of being a sluggard? Not being a steward of your day and of your time. What about your job? Are you like a workaholic? Is your work conflicting with your relationship with the Lord? Or what about your friends? Did you know that your friends can be an idol? Maybe there's some attitude that you've held on to that doesn't reflect the character of Christ. Did you know that you can make an enemy of God by holding on to fleshly instinct, by being bitter towards someone, to be like the fleshly instinct to be bitter towards someone? I know of a friend who God was dealing with, who's facing God's strong punishment because he literally hated his boss, and his resentment towards his boss made it impossible for him to show the love of Christ, and he had to repent of that. And so, but that was idolatry, because he held on to he held his own self and his own selfishness and his fleshly whims above the will of God. And you can also make idols out of emotional situations, even traumas, guys, traumas or emotional disappointments. It's one thing to go through the process of facing, facing such things where you have to go through counseling and so on. But if you're thinking about it every day, all the time, that's idolatry. This is something I myself have had to deal with. We've all had to experience losing friends in a breakup or a strong disappointment. Several months ago, I had to see a friendship get terminated, and I was heartbroken, and I couldn't sleep. And as I kept asking the Lord to help me get freedom of my mind back, he kept showing me that I was making an idol. I was making an idol out of it. And so I asked him to help me to get that out of my head, but he said, you have to replace it with something. And so you have to replace it with me. If you have an idol in your life, no matter what it is, if you don't know how to overcome it, and it's in your mind especially, get yourself so caught up in his concerns and his interests that you won't have time. You won't have any room in your head for anything else to come in and compete. That means focus. You focus. It's the same exact thing as this idea of keeping your eyes on Jesus. And all the time. And, don't budge. And if you do that, you keep your eyes on him, he will give you the desires of your heart. He won't do that unless he knows that you can receive it while still keeping him first. In other words, he won't give you a new idol. So keep him first, and everything else will work out for your good. God bless you guys.